It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. Great to have you in studio today. We've got another great show lined up for you. Actually, it's a two-parter. We're going to be talking about Yavapai County Sheriff's Office history with Brendan Fillingham. You are with the cold case unit.
Correct.
Okay. And then we have Ron Williams, and you are former deputy chief.
Former deputy sheriff.
Deputy sheriff, not chief. That's
Don't promote me like that.
Yeah. But anyways, these guys are in studio today. You've been kind of working on gathering memorabilia and items and putting the storyline together for the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office when it started to present day.
Yes.
Quite a task.
It's been a multi-year task.
Yeah. And this is going to be on display.
Yes,
Maybe we should hit that first before we get into the history lesson we're about to get today. So when is it going to go on display and where?
Well, it's going to be on display at Charlotte Hall Museum in Prescott. And that'll be, the exhibit will open, I believe, the last week of March, or possibly the first week of April of 2015, and it'll run for a year.
Okay. And I know we ran a story earlier this year about how you guys were looking for memorabilia, pictures, anything you get your hands on that represented the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office throughout the years. Now, today on our first part of the show, we're going to do two shows. We've got the first show we're going to take and look from 1865 to 1911 statehood, and then from there to present time in the second show. So, let me ask you this, guys. The first question, the only question I have on my page, when and how did the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office begin?
Well, technically, the Sheriff's Office predates the county.
Okay, that makes sense.
In 1864, when after the Organic Act was passed and they created the territories of New Mexico and Arizona, they had 3 judicial districts in the territory.
Okay.
You had Prescott, Yuma, and Tucson. And they were in reverse order, Judicial Districts 3, 2, and 1.
Okay. Okay, gotcha.
So Prescott was Judicial District 3. You had a judge who was who handled a third of the territory for court cases, and there was an appointed sheriff appointed by the U.S. government, who was the first sheriff of that region of the territory.
Okay.
And that man, Van C. Smith.
Van C. Smith was our very first sheriff.
He was the first sheriff.
Okay.
Originally sheriff of Judicial District 3.
Gotcha.
But later on was carried over to be the sheriff of Yavapai County.
Now that would be a big area to cover, I would imagine, back then.
26,000 square miles.
Holy cow, for one person.
One person.
Now it was just the sheriff. He didn't have deputies or...
Initially he didn't.
Okay.
Initially he didn't. He was appointed to be the sheriff of the Judicial District. Then on January 1st, 1865, when the county was officially formed, and all the officers took office, he was then the sheriff of Yavapai County.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So tell me a little bit about his exploits as the first sheriff of Yavapai County. What was he encountering at that time back in 1865?
Back then, well, first of all, you only had a few thousand people in the entire territory.
But a huge territory, 26,000 square miles.
Well, that's the Judicial District 3.
Okay.
Or maybe even the original extent of the county.
That's the original extent of Yavapai County.
Okay.
Which at that point covered Navajo and Apache, and it covered part of Maricopa and part of Graham County. And,
oh my gosh.
I mean, part of all of Coconino County.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from, there was only 4 counties to start with. Everything from the Utah-Arizona border down to the Gila River, and then back into New Mexico.
That's amazing. And he wasn't driving this or flying this. He's on horseback.
It was horseback. There was no trains at that point, so it was all horseback. There was a large native population problem where it was conflicts between the settlers coming in and the native population, and those kind of problems continued on for the sheriff's office until the 1870s. There's newspaper reports from the early 1870s of the sheriff being attacked by natives on his doing his little circuits.
Oh wow! What was his name again?
The first sheriff was Van C. Smith.
How long was he our sheriff?
Well, from going back to when he was the sheriff of the Judicial District, that was for a couple months, and then he was actual sheriff of Yavapai County for about 2 months.
Yeah, about 2-3 months.
Oh, that's it.
Yes.
Right. Then
what
he
happened?
resigned.
He resigned.
Oh, he resigned. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, the first several sheriffs we had, there was very little formal government. There was very little support. And the job was honestly too big for one person, and they cycled through sheriffs very fast.
And the sheriff's term prior to 1965, was 2 years.
Oh, okay, okay.
So you'd get a lot of one-term sheriffs. They'd be there for some amount of time, or they'd hit it rich.
Many of them were prospectors on the side, and the minute they'd hit it rich, they'd resign.
Okay, so this was kind of like a side job for them.
A lot of times it was.
Right.
So when would they be sent out, and who would say? I guess the judge would probably say, "Okay, sheriff, we need you to go do this."
Prior to the county being formed, yes. Prior to the county being formed, it'd be a lot of. You'd have issues, potentially civil issues, where the judge would hear a case and then make a ruling, and the sheriff would have to go out and seize assets and sell them at auction and such.
Gotcha. And then once we had the county.
Once you had the county and the legislature approved the Howell Act, which gave the territory an actual law code to actually enforce, then the sheriff could start enforcing criminal law. But prior to that, you didn't have any territorial law, actually.
When did the sheriff start seeing more support and started getting deputies? And
Well, I would say that wasn't too far after Van Smith was the sheriff.
Okay.
Because then you had a formal county, all the government was together by 1865. And then, Prescott was the capital. And now you're seeing citizens of Prescott, whether it's a territorial governor or their staff, or you're starting to get minors that are coming in. So I would say shortly thereafter, so early 1865.
Mid 1860s, you start having a situation where the sheriff would have 2 to 3 deputies.
Right.
But then again, you have to remember, even at that time, for the most part, other than Fort Verde or Prescott, those are really the only 2 real population centers in the entire county.
wow.
So, in the 1860s.
Right.
So you'd have the sheriff, and you may have 2 or 3 deputies at most.
So do you got any good stories from back then that you could share with us?
Well, there's
Maybe one.
God, there's so many of them. A really interesting story that kind of bridges the 2 time frames that we're talking about would be Deputy Jim Roberts.
Right.
And Deputy Jim Roberts is really probably one of the favorite deputies of the agency, and especially of the sheriff.
Okay.
Deputy Roberts became the deputy sheriff of the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office in 1889.
Wow. Okay, so we're jumping ahead a little bit.
A little bit, exactly. He was involved prior to being a deputy. He was involved in the Pleasant Valley War, which most historians out here know about. It was a cattlemen versus sheep herders range war that went on for several years in the 1880s.
Oh wow. Okay.
And they happened out here in the Verde Valley and out over into Graham County area. He became a deputy in 1889. He was sent down to Congress originally.
Sheriff Bucky O'Neill hired him.
Okay.
Sent him down to Congress. He cleaned up Congress, which at that time was a large mining town, very wild. He met his future wife down there, who was.
What's he cleaning up when you say he's cleaning up Congress? What kind of stuff are we talking about?
Mining, gambling, a lot of lawlessness in general. I mean, whenever you have a bunch of men together who are drinking and working and needing to blow off steam, you think of Tombstone, you think of Deadwood, South Dakota.
A dangerous thing to walk into, right?
Very dangerous.
Yeah.
Right, and so you get mob mentalities too, because whatever the group of miners wants to do with no law or no significant presence,
sure,
they just do what they want.
Sure.
And so Jim Roberts had to go down there and take care of that.
Straighten that stuff
Yeah.
out.
Exactly.
Okay.
He was down there for about 2 years and met his future wife, who was her last name was Kirkland, and she was of the Kirkland family from Kirkland, Arizona.
Oh, be darned.
And so they get married, and once Congress is calm, the sheriff sends him up to Jerome, which at that time was the new boomtown in Arizona.
Okay, all right.
So he goes to Jerome.
This is awesome, okay.
And he's one of 2 deputies in Jerome. Jim Roberts gets a reputation of when he has to shoot people, he shoots them in the head.
Oh.
This starts off back in the Graham-Tewksbury Wars, the Pleasant Valley War, and he's known as a head shooter.
So he's got quite a reputation then.
He does, and that's how he got his job.
Okay.
We imagine he did shoot people in the chest at some point, as most people do when they shoot, but that wasn't stopping people.
Gotcha.
So he decided he had to change tactics a little bit.
That'll work.
He was involved in several different incidents in Jerome. He was involved in taking 2 gentlemen into custody, killing one and taking one into custody. Involved in a saloon dispute over a faro game in the early 1890s.
Oh, wow.
Where there was a dispute over some possible cheating, and he gets involved, and there's a shootout involved. One man's dead, another man's taken into custody. There was a situation with a Mexican national in Jerome who killed somebody and fled town. He had to chase that person down, ended up killing that person. There's an anecdotal story, which is a great story, but we haven't been able to actually confirm it yet. But the story itself is like 80 years old, where there was, well, it was known for a fact that in Jerome, the jail burned down in the early 1890s. So they didn't have money to build a new jail. So what they would do is if you were arrested, you got chained to a wagon wheel on Main Street.
Oh, wow.
And it was the wagon jail, essentially, or the jail wagon. And there was another deputy who arrested a gentleman for I don't know what, and he was chained to the wagon wheel. The arrested individual's friend helped him break out of the wagon jail.
And essentially wheel the wheel away, roll it away.
So while they're doing this, the arresting deputy comes back and sees what's going on and tries to stop them. He's killed during that escape.
Okay.
So the two outlaws are able to get free of the wagon jail and ride out of town, down the mountain into Camp Verde area, into the Verde Valley, and out into the wilderness. Jim Roberts, being the other deputy in town, saddles up his mule. He always rode a mule, even though he raised horses as a living prior, but he always rode a mule because they were more sure-footed. Saddled up his mule and went after them. Well, he found them at first light at the bottom of somewhere in the Camp Verde area, or in the Verde Valley area, and he sees them at first light. He gives them orders to surrender. They apparently chose not to surrender, and they both ended up being shot in the head.
Wow.
And that's how the death of that deputy was resolved.
Wow. We have to take a break.
Yes.
Great stories. Brendan Fillingham and Ron Williams in studio today. We're talking about the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office, the memorabilia collection that's coming together to be on display at Charlotte Hall Museum in 2015. Countywide will be back in just a couple minutes.
At Gettle's High Desert Mechanical, rather than do lots of things, we focus on doing one thing right. We serve climate-challenged people. Gettle's starts with a free system evaluation to identify the best AC and heating equipment for your home or business. Professional installation, warranties, and service after the sale. If you're climate-challenged, then we're the right choice. Gettle's High Desert Mechanical, the name to trust.
Who else has been taking your prescriptions? Keep your medicine and your family safe and secure. Mind your meds. To learn how we can help, visit the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids at drugfree.org.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
A boy born in Joplin, Missouri was fascinated by anything with wheels and a motor. The odds of him winning both the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400 in the same year? 1 in 195 million. The odds of the child being diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I'm Jamie McMurray, and my niece has autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
Welcome back to Countywide. We're talking about the history of the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office. We were, what, 1890s? Is that where we got to?
Right.
1890s?
1890s.
Okay, all right. We were going to talk a little bit about hangings. We've got a few minutes here before we take the next break. So tell me a little bit about the hangings that were taking place in Yavapai County at that time.
Well, Under territorial law at that time, from 1865 until about 1930, I take that back, until about 1910. 1910, the county sheriff was responsible for executions in the territory. So if you were convicted of a crime, and there was really only murder was the only kind. There's no, you didn't get hung for horse thieving. That's a kind of a myth.
Really? Okay,
no.
Okay. That's interesting.
Capital murder was the only reason they hung somebody.
Okay.
As far as I can determine. And if you were convicted of a capital crime, you were sentenced to hang. Hanging was the prescribed death penalty. And that was carried out by the county sheriff.
Was it swift justice when it came to hanging?
Relatively. Compared to today, very swift.
Like now, I think they sit there for about 20 years before they're actually executed.
The thing was, back then, statute provided only 2 days for the district attorney or the county attorney and the defense to prepare for trial.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then they were into
that was fast, too.
And most trials were less than a week. And on average, the time from sentencing to a hanging would be anywhere from 3 months to like a year and a half. A year and a half would be considered an extreme case.
I would say so. Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, and that would be multiple appeals, and that was one of the hanging of Fleming Parker, the appeal process.
Ooh.
Fleming Parker was hung in 1896 here in Yavapai County by Sheriff Ruffner.
Okay.
And his appeal process took almost a year.
Okay, yeah, we've just had a picture of folks who are listening on the radio. You're going to want to go to the website myradioplace.com and click on the VVTV icon because you can pull it up. But you've got a photo of this guy.
Yes.
On the gallows, waiting there to be hung.
We have a photo of him waiting to be hung. We also have the original 1896 jail log ledger that actually shows him, everybody in prison or in the jail, excuse me, for that month. And shows all their names. Their hash marks for their feedings, and then on his it stops on June 3rd and it says hanged.
Wow.
What was happening is we had to account to the Board of Supervisors for meals served, and so all the county prisoners were fed 2 times a day. And so if we went over that, we had to account for that because we had contracted with a local restaurant to provide us food. It wasn't until later that we were able to have a kitchen in the courthouse jail. Yeah.
But so hangings, we've had 10 hangings in Yavapai County, 10 legal hangings that were actually done through the justice system between the 1870s and the last one was 1903.
1903. Okay.
And of those 10 hangings, the last one in 1903 was actually a double hanging, the only double hanging in the county ever. And
you had a picture. You sent us a picture of that one too, didn't you?
I believe I did.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so we had that picture too. We have to take another break. We have to take another break already. Talking about the history of the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office. This is Countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Hey, Hard, what's this?
That's my resignation letter.
You're resigning.
Why? Because you're constantly ignoring me. You're half as active as you used to be, and you get stuff like this. You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit.
I forgot. I'll do better. Please, don't quit on me.
Okay, but remember, it's not what you say, it's what you do.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you.
Let's go for a walk.
Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
At Gettle's High Desert Mechanical, rather than do lots of things, we focus on doing one thing right. We serve climate-challenged people. Gettle's starts with a free system evaluation to identify the best AC and heating equipment for your home or business. Professional installation, warranties, and service after the sale. If you're climate-challenged, then we're the right choice. Gettle's High Desert Mechanical, the name to trust.
You make me wear my bike helmet. Taught me never to run with scissors.
You tell me to stay away from drugs.
To always buckle my seatbelt.
And to follow the swimming rules.
You're always looking out for me and trying to keep me safe.
So why do you keep a loaded gun in your drawer?
Here in the garage.
Closet? Shoebox under the bed. Where anyone can get to it. How safe is that?
How safe is that?
How safe is that?
You asked them to follow some safety rules. Now they're asking you. In fact, they're counting on you. Never let your gun get into the wrong hands. If you own a firearm and are not using it, please be responsible and be sure that it's stored in a safe place. Remember, always lock it up. For more information on firearm storage safety, visit ncpc.org.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've briefly covered the history of the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office. We were starting in just 1864, 1865 to 1911. All the items that you have, how many pieces do you have?
Oh my.
That'll be on display.
Overall, we have over 300 photos spanning 150 years. On display, we may have 60 or 70, you think?
At least.
Yeah, at least 60 or 70 photos. We have, how many, 9 display cases now?
I think there's about 11 or so now.
11 display cases.
Just full of things.
Full of artifacts, patches, badges, ledgers, ID cards, old jail keys. I mean, you name it.
Stuff from throughout the years.
Guns.
And so was the response good from the public in terms of, hey, we're looking for this memorabilia?
It's been incredible. And yeah. I give all the credit to Brendan for that, because he's been the investigator to find a lot of these artifacts.
People come to us, or I'll go to people. I'll research former deputies or former sheriffs and contact them if they're living or their family members and say, hey, we're doing this project. I want to start this museum. Would you like to loan or donate items to us? And for the most part, they're very receptive to it. If they're living, you know, they want to have their things on loan to us or donate to celebrate their legacy. Or if they've passed, you know, they want to, celebrate their family members. Sure. I know one of the pictures I provided to you all was of Deputy Sheriff Jody LaRue. And he's been passed on now for about 5 years. But when I went to his daughter and I said, hey, you know, I want to, you know, I know Jody's history. He was really part of this community, Yarnell Baghdad Congress, for quite a few years. I want to display his badge and so forth. And she said, yes, my dad would have loved to have been part of this if he was still living.
That's fantastic. Okay, so this is going to be coming up on the Charlotte Hall Museum in March. But you guys also are doing tours of the Sheriff's Office as well right now.
The Sheriff's Office, in the main walkway of the Sheriff's Office, we have 9 or 11 display cases and about 60 or 70 photographs up on the walls. We do tours upon request. It's a secure facility, obviously, but if you call in to the Sheriff's Office and ask for Brendan Fillingham, then he can usually make arrangements to have your group get a tour of the artifacts.
All right, that's part 1 of our show. That is part 1. You guys are going to stick around. We're going to do a second part that'll air a little bit later. But Brendan Fillingham and Ron Williams, thank you so much for helping with part 1 of this incredible show that we're doing. I'm Paul David. That's today's Countywide, and we will talk to you again next time.